Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and today I wanted to cover the Lot 240 session over at Hakes for vintage Star Wars figures. And I think we all kind of suspected that the prices would be up in this auction, and they did not disappoint. There were some pretty big grails in this auction, and the prices blew past any expectations for many items. Not everything. Not everything. I had some good luck with a couple of mint on cards and one other item that I'll show you in this video. But in general, though, the stuff that's rare went really high and kind of blew past even my fairly high expectations for price. But there were some beauties in this auction, and what I'm going to do is quote you the final sales price, including the 18% buyer's premium that Hakes charges to the winning bidder. And Hakes reached out to me and reminded me, I didn't know this, to be honest with you, but Hakes does offer a 3% discount off of that buyer's premium if you pay by check. So for me, I spent a lot of money in this Hakes auction, so I'm going to be sending them a check, and that'll save me 3%. And that way, your buyer's premium is only 15% instead of the 18% if you pay by credit card. So I wanted to get that out there before we dig in. But all the prices I'm covering in this auction include the buyer's premium of 18%. So this was a long display header, 12 action, the first 12 action figures, store display header, pretty awesome looking display there. I got a couple of those that I'm going to cover before we dig into some of the action figures. This was graded AFA 70, and the value code is kind of what Hakes thinks it's going to sell for. And they put a value code of $10,000 to $20,000 on this. It sold for $8,800 after the BP. So it came in below the low end of the value code. And there were some items, including mint on cards, that did come in a lot lower than expected. So there were deals to be had, but just with every Hakes auction, you got to kind of pick and choose your battles. Next up is of one of those rare dangler displays that you would see in some store displays, and it's a fairly new, it's obviously a fairly rare one because it says 3 new action figures, even though they're first 12 figures. We talked about this in the preview video. Collect all 12, 3 new action figures. So these are the 3 that came out as part of the first 12 at the end of the first 12. So very, very rare store display, I would imagine. These were not in plentiful numbers. It was graded AFA 60. The value code was $5,000 to $10,000. It sold for $29.30 after the BP. So that came in really low. It came in well below the low end of the value code. And so maybe that's a sign that some store display type items are kind of coming down. It is just cardboard after all. And that is what it is. Next up, on the other end of the spectrum, we've got an AFA 85 early bird mail-away kit with a double telescoping Luke lightsaber inside one of the baggies. So this was kind of the very first action figures that Kenner sent out to customers that sent in their proofs of purchase or whatever. And you've got the double telescoping lightsaber version of the Luke Farm Boy inside. And it was graded AFA 85. The value code was $20,000 to $35,000, and it came in at $25,960. So towards the lower end of the range, but still a very solid number for an AFA 85 early bird kit. Pretty awesome item there. Next up, I got a few kind of early card backs. I picked a random smattering across the entire era of Kenner items. So it's not, if you don't see something that I didn't cover in this video, it's not because I'm ignoring it. I'm just kind of giving you a random idea of what stuff is selling for. 12 back A, Luke Skywalker Farm Boy, and this one is only a single grade. We've talked about that in past videos. So this is kind of an early graded example without any subscores. Value code was $2,000 to $5,000. It sold at $29.50. $29.50, a very solid number, but for a 12 back A, I consider that a pretty good deal relative to some of the other 12 back A's we've seen, maybe that are more freshly graded, but this looks every bit of a nice 80 grade punched example. Here was a 12 back A Ben Kenobi AFA 85 with the SKU on the figure stand. And what that refers to is on the footer that Ben Kenobi is sitting on, the very early 12 backs had a little SKU number kind of imprinted on that footer. And it was a 12 back A AFA 85 with a price sticker unpunched. And that one sold for $27.67. So kind of right in the middle there of the value code of $2,000 to $5,000, but towards the lower end. Next up was a 12-back C R2D2 AFA 80 plus. Really nice shape. Punched example with a price sticker. Value code was $1,000 to $2,000. It sold at $16.79. A very robust number. Probably about right. You know, we've seen some 12-back C R2s even on eBay sell in that $1,200 to $1,400 range pretty consistently. So I don't think that was a terrible price for a 12-back C AFA 80 plus. Now we get into some kind of some wonky items. This is a 12-back B Takara Darth Vader. This is the standard head sculpt. So this is just the standard Hong Kong inside a Takara Japanese Darth Vader 12-back B. And it's got the import sticker there from Takara, unpunched example, no price sticker. Value code was $1,000 to $2,000. That one sold at $928. It was an AFA 75, admittedly. And again, we talked about some of the strategies to use on Hakes. Hakes attracts a lot of big whales. Stay away from AFA 85 items. And I've got more examples of that later on that are going to blow your mind in terms of what the sales prices were. Stay away from the AFA 85s. Clear Blister, Return of the Jedi. Stay away from those. Those absolutely blew through expectations. If you can live with a 75, or if you can live with an AFA 80 with a 75 subgrade especially, those tend to go for what I would argue is below fair market value. And so this one sold again at $928 after the buyer's premium. It's a 12-back B Vader AFA 75. That's a very, very nice item to get for $928. On the other end of the spectrum, you know, you got to stay away from these kind of rarities. This is a white background card back, and it's the alternate head sculpt for Darth Vader that was Takara factory specific. Unpunched, no price sticker, AFA 80. Very rare item. I've only seen maybe one or two of these ever for sale. It's a 12-back C, AFA 80. The value code was $2,000 to $5,000. It sold for $6,490. So well above the value code. And so Hakes, to me, you know, the vast majority of you guys watching my videos, you're not probably buying this type of item. I'm not. And you know, just be aware of that. You know, it's just, these are very, very expensive items. And if it looks desirable, you know, just be prepared to pay a lot of money and towards the upper end of the value code or above that. Okay. And again, I'm sure there's some of you watching this video that collect this kind of stuff. It's kind of outside of my budget, but I think that it was a beautiful item, and I have no kind of reference for value on that. That to me seems a little high, because I vaguely remember one on Rebel Hideout that which is on Facebook. They had one of these available, and I think it was the same grade, and I don't think it was listed for this kind of price. I think it was in the 4 or 5 range, but you know, I could be misremembering. It's a very vague memory of that. But that was a beauty. It was $64.90 after the buyer's premium. Alternate face sculpt for the Vader, and it was Takara is a Takara specific factory example of the Vader. Next up, man, this one really blew past expectations. This is probably one of the highest graded examples in the world of a 12-back A vinyl cape Jawa AFA 85 plus. You know, it was just an absolute stunner, and you know, it's one of the nicest examples of, you know, ever kind of shown. They were very specific, Hakes was, to say no discoloration to the vinyl cape, which brings the price down dramatically if it starts to stain inside the blister there. So pretty amazing combination. The value code was $20,000 to $35,000, and it went above the high end of the value code. It sold at $36,603. And we've seen some AFA 80 examples, I feel like, that were selling kind of $17,000 to $18,000. So clearly, the market is up for very high-grade items. People got some money to spend. I was expecting kind of $25,000. I did not think it would approach that $35,000 number, even in maybe what we see as a kind of a bumping up market. I was thinking, okay, yeah, it's probably, you know, this auction is there's gonna have a lot of high bids on this auction. It just felt that way going into it, for me anyway. And I was thinking, okay, it'll probably go above the low end of the value code, but it won't touch that $35,000 number. Shows you how wrong I was. $36,603 on that one. Here's another rarity. This is the wind-up R2D2 mint on card, Kenner Canada. This is a very, very tough item to find mint on card. You can find these loose graded wind-ups pretty easily. both UKG graded as well as AFA graded. But mint on card is a different story. Not many of these out there. Pretty awesome card back. Very, very unique. So this is a Kenner Canada wind-up from 1978. It was only an AFA 60. Value code was $2,000 to $5,000. It sold at $49.97. So almost at the very, very top end of the upper end of the value code from Hakes. Here's another one that blew past my expectations. The value code on this one was $2,000 to $5,000. This is the 7-inch Takara Darth Vader. It was graded AFA 80+, which is probably one of the higher grades for this because these blisters are very wonky. You know, we've talked about these in past market updates where these have sold on eBay. They're usually like AFA 40s, AFA 60s because these blisters are so fragile and they have so many weird angles that they just crunch and crack, and they're just extremely, extremely fragile items. 7-inch Darth Vader. There was obviously some others in the line that we've shown on the channel in the past. C-3PO, Stormtrooper, and then Chewbacca. But this Vader was graded AFA 80+. The value code was $2,000 to $5,000. It sold at $7,398. So it absolutely crushed the value code. I was not expecting that whatsoever. I really wasn't. I was thinking maybe $2,500 to $3,000, just based on, you know, in the back of my mind, some of the Chewbaccas and some of the other C-3POs we've seen on eBay that have sold, and admittedly very low grade, but wow, I cannot believe that thing sold for $7,400. Here is one I picked up, and it was a great deal. This was a steal, I thought. And this is an Engineering Pilot Red Snaggletooth. I grabbed this one, and this is kind of a later stage prototype where they're kind of like, you know, finalizing it. Let's see what they say about it. Verified to have originated from a Kenner employee with internal Kenner writing on the bottom of the foot, reading A on the left foot it has 7. The Engineering Pilot was used in the final stages of pre-production, archival case, and it comes with this statement or the certificate of authenticity. It was graded AFA 80+, red snags. You can see the bottom of the feet there. This is a common thing for a lot of these Engineering Pilots that so it's a late stage kind of prototype or pre-production. It's not a first shot. A first shot would be more valuable. That's an earlier stage, but this is a later stage. But it was AFA 80+. The value code was $1,000 to $2,000, and with the buyer's premium, it was $864. And I'm actually going to get 3% off of that because I'm going to pay by check instead of credit card. So I thought that was a really good deal, and I couldn't resist it. I got into a little bit of a bidding war, but not too bad. And I'd be excited about it. It's another pre-production item. I only have, I think, 2 pre-production items from the vintage Kenner line in my collection. Both of them Lobots. Who cares about Lobot, right? He kind of looks like me, though. But anyway, I'm excited about getting this Snaggletooth. I think it's going to be really cool, and I'm sure I'll show it on the channel. This was kind of a weird one. This was a triple encased Lily Letty removable hood. We got a Toll Toys vinyl Cape Jawa and then a regular vinyl Cape Jawa. This is the regular. And on the right-hand side is the Toll Toys, obviously, because it's got the brown limbs. And then you got the Lily Letty removable hood. So it's all in one case. I personally wouldn't want that. I would rather have them all separately cased, but very cool item. It was graded in overall 75, probably because mainly the Toll Toys Jawa has discoloration to it. The value code was $5,000 to $10,000. It sold at $64.36, so towards the lower end of the range. To me, I'd break these out and grade them separately. That's my personal opinion. But given that an AFA 80 Toll Toys Jawa sold on eBay for $6,000 by itself, and you get all 3 of these for a little more than that, $64.36. Now, admittedly, this vinyl Cape Jawa is in lower grade. This is probably a 75-ish kind of grade. But I don't know what the others would be. But, think about what that one sold for on eBay versus what these 3 sold for together. That's a pretty good deal, really. I just personally would crack them out and resubmit them separately graded. Here was another vinyl Cape Jawa. This was an CAS 75, and that one's just the regular Hong Kong. That one sold for $17.26, probably about right, given the 75 grade. Here is another store display. This is a massive store display. It's huge. I've seen a few of these for sale. I think Dallas Vintage Toys had one for sale at one point, but this is a massive item. It is 20 inches by 34 inches long. That's what she said. This is a very, very large display. AFA 75. The value code was 2,000 to 5,000. It sold for $49.32, so towards the upper end of the range. That would be an awesome item to have in your display as kind of a centerpiece, or maybe like built into like a coffee table or something. I don't know. Thinking out loud here, but that would be really cool. I wish I had the space for it, but I do not. Awesome item. Next up, so now we're going to start digging into maybe more common items, and not all of these, but a lot of these, the prices show you why you got to stay away from clear blister Return of the Jedis or very high grade common items, AFA 85s. There are crazy people out there that get into bidding wars on Hakes. We talked about it last time, or maybe 2 auctions ago, where that AFA 85 Rancor Keeper, it was a standard US release. It was graded in AFA 85 clear blister, but it had very clearly yellowed since grading, and it still sold for like $3,800. I mean, easily 10 to 15 times what the fair market value is on it, in my opinion. So here's one I was watching. I was like, I wonder what this is going to sell for. I wouldn't mind having it. AFA 85, IG 88, 48 back A, but it was an AFA 85. So I was like, probably not going to be able to afford that. And the value code on it was $1,000 to $2,000. I was thinking it would sell $1,200. That was kind of my estimate. It sold for $1,972, almost $2,000 for a fairly common IG-88, 48 back A. I mean, maybe it's not common. I don't know. But, to me, it's not like the debut card or anything, I don't think. I think, he came on a 31 back. 31 back A is the debut card. So this is a later release ESB IG-88. And I mean, $2,000 is crazy. I wouldn't pay anywhere close to that number. Next up, here's another one that really surprised me. This was a DCA graded diecast snowspeeder, yellowed blister 80. Now, it did present really nicely, okay? This was a beauty. No price sticker, unpunched, and the yellowing wasn't too bad at all on it. But it was still a yellowed AFA 80 diecast. The value code was 1,000 to 2,000. It sold at $1,427. Oh, over 42% higher than the upper end of the value code. No way I pay anywhere close to that. I probably wouldn't even pay half that number. So, no offense if you're the one that bought it. I'm just giving my personal opinion. It was worth about $700. That it was worth the low end of the value code to me. Maybe $800 because it's unpunched and the yellowing on the blister is not bad. But that's $1,400 is crazy. Here was another very rare item. This was no grade, but it's a Revenge of the Jedi concept card, hand drawn. I've seen one of these on Facebook before. It might be the same one, but it's hand drawn, hand marker in. It was kind of a concept drawing card back by the engineers when they were first trying to come up with how the Revenge of the Jedi, or Return of the Jedi later, card backs were going to look for the packaging, the new Kenner line of packaging. So no grade on it, archival case. They couldn't give it a grade because it's just a hand-drawn concept. And it was value code was $10,000 to $20,000. It sold for $22,000, so about 10% above the upper end of the range. So go on. You can go on Hakes and read about it. I won't read through the whole description, but it's a pretty rare item. And on the back, they used a standard 45 back ESB card as the back of it, and then it was probably a blank front that they used or they could have just scribbled over in black the 45 back that they used for this. So very rare item, very cool, but not something you see every day. Next up, let's see what else we got here. We've got this is really cool, and I don't know if I talked about this in the preview video, but this is like a weird pre-production kind of concept where they were taking G.I. Joe parts and putting them on a Princess Leia Bouche, and it was going to be like a kind of like a battle pack that they were going to use to pack in for Bouche. Look at this Gatling gun that goes on her head. Value code on that was $5,000 to $10,000. It sold at $64.90, and so very rare pre-production, not gradable. They were taking G.I. Joe parts and maybe kind of trying to figure out how they could make a cool battle pack type of helmet for Bouche, and never saw the light of day, but very, very cool item there. Next up was one of those gold pre-production prototype Darth Vader carrying cases. Very rough shape, obviously, but a lot of these were handled by internally at Kenner by the engineers and just tested and things like that. So it was only an AFA 40. That sold. It was the value code on it was 2 to 5. It sold for $34.81, even though it was only an AFA 40. But it's kind of like a vac metallized gold example of the Darth Vader carrying case. These are two that I don't know why they sold so high, but they are foreign vintage Clipper wraparound offer Vaders, but both of them were fairly low grade. One of them was an AFA 70 plus 48 back Return of the Jedi. Value code was $400 to $700. I was thinking maybe $1,000 at the upper end. It was only a 70 plus, and it's not that rare. It sold for $27.25. So, I guess I don't know values of Clipper wraparound offer card backs because I've just never bought one and don't really see them that much on eBay. But to me, that seems really high. I mean, I've seen some more common characters go for $400 to $700 all day long. So I thought the value code was too low because it is a rare Vader and it's also a transition card 48 back Return of the Jedi card back. So that number seemed really high to me, but again, I don't know Clipper items. And then here's an even more common 65 back B Clipper wraparound, yellowed 70 grade. Value code again was $400 to $700. That one sold for $2,600. So again, I don't know my Vader stuff very well, or maybe two Vader fans got into a bidding war, but those seem like really, really big prices to me. Here's another one, again, going back to my kind of general concept of stay away from clear blister Return of the Jedis in high grade. Here was a Princess Leia Organa AFA 85 77 back A clear blister, and it's still clear. This is unlike that unlike that Rancor Keeper. This one still looks clear to me. I mean, it looks crystal clear to me. Maybe it's starting to yellow a little bit, but if it is, it's very faint. Value code was $700 to $1,000. I was thinking maybe it goes to $1,100. I've seen some of these in high grade go for that on Facebook, about $1,000 to $1,100. It sold for $25.96, $2,600 for a standard 77A Princess Leia, admittedly clear or clear-ish blister AFA 85, but that's a massive number, $2,600. Clearly a bidding war broke out. Here's another extremely rare item that you probably will see maybe one of these every few years, if that. But this was a tri-logo General Maen. It's one of the rarest production figures out there, to my knowledge. It's definitely the rarest tri-logo, General Maen. And it was an AFA 60. The value code was $10,000 to $20,000. I was expecting $15,000 to $18,000 as the final winning bid, just based on my limited data points from past sales from many years ago on Facebook. I just remember vaguely some of them for sale. It was only an AFA 60, so again, I thought that would hold the price back. Again, the value code was $10,000 to $20,000. It sold for $42,242. So double the upper end of the value code, over double the value end, the value code of $20,000. So of just an absolutely jaw-dropping final number on that. But it is what it is. These do not come up regularly. I mean, who knows? But I bet that we don't see another one of these for 5 years on Hakes. It's just, I don't remember ever there being one on Hakes. I'm sure there have been, but I don't remember it. And so that's an incredible item, and the price reflected it. $42,000, over double the upper end of the value code. Next up, this was a cool item. This was a CAS loose display of the Bib Fortuna Burgundy cape with the card back, and it had the original blister as well. CAS 85. The value code was $1,000 to $2,000. I knew that was too low. It sold at $28.83, which I would argue that's actually still a really good deal. That's a number, if I had been wanting something like that, that's a number I would have paid all day long. You oftentimes do see Burgundy cape bibs, loose, ungraded, people asking $3,000 plus for it. So that was a really cool item, and it sold again for $28.83. Next up, I've got some Power of the Force to wrap things up. We've got a clear blister AFA 80 Stormtrooper. That one sold for $13.57, kind of in the middle of the value code. This one blew past my expectations. An AFA 85 Darth Vader punched example, yellow blister, obviously. But again, stay away from 85s unless you got the big boy money in your pocket. That one sold for $17.52. I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting, to be honest with you. You can get an AFA 80 for probably $900 to $1,000. So maybe I was thinking $1,500. So it's not too far off. I mean, that's not a terrible overpay. Here was the Luke Skywalker X-Wing AFA 85. The value code was 1,000 to 2,000. You know, you can get an AFA 80 probably 800 to 900. That would be my target if I had an AFA 80. That one sold for 2,076. To me, that's an overpay. I'm not paying that much. No way. $1,500 would be my number personally. Now, I think the Luke X-Wing is more rare than the Vader. You see the Vader way more often than you do the Luke X-Wing, but no way I'm paying $2,000 for it. Here was the Luke Stormtrooper AFA 85. The value code was 1,000 to 2,000. That sold at $2,000. I thought, you know, it's a very common item, but high grade. And $2,000 is kind of in line with what we're seeing even on eBay. So I think that was fine. And then here is the very rare Kenner Canada Yak Face AFA 70. Value code was 5 to 10. That one sold at $65.55. I thought that was kind of in line with my expectations. Higher grade, easily over $10,000, but because it's a 70 grade, that I knew that would hold the price back below $10,000. So $65.55, quite honestly, that's probably the lowest I've seen a Kenner Canada Yak Face sell for. I don't remember ever seeing one that sell that low, but maybe there have been. I just haven't seen it. But anyway, you know, a pretty wide range of prices. In general, the prices were up. The very rare items blew past my expectations. I don't know about you. Leave a comment below if you had any luck on Hakes and won some items. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll be back soon.